September 1st, 1985. All of California is looking for Richard Ramirez. He is accused of killing as many as 20 people over the past 6 months. In downtown Los Angeles, cops are scouring Skid Row looking for him. A special police unit is assigned to the bus station in case Ramirez tries to leave town.
And their explicit orders were, we don't want a trial for this guy. The implication being, if he shows up and he resists in any way, do what you have to do.
In fact, Ramirez is heading toward Los Angeles on a Greyhound bus, unaware of his new fame. As he crosses the California desert, a violent storm engulfs the bus.
Lightning bolts are ripping open the sky and tearing open the sky, and there's these loud, thunderous, cannon-like booms. And it started making him feel inside that God was angry, that something wasn't right, something cataclysmic was going to happen.
Ramirez arrives in Los Angeles on the morning of September 1st. He sees that the bus depot is crawling with cops, but he has no idea why. He quickly leaves and loses himself in the downtown crowds. He buys coffee at a corner store. People are looking at him. He doesn't know why. Someone yells, "El Matador," the killer. Then he sees on the front page of every paper his own face. He panics and runs into the street. People are chasing him. He jumps on a city bus, hoping to make it to his brother's house in East Los Angeles. But people recognize him there too. Ramirez gets off the bus and runs frantically through the streets of East Los Angeles.
Everywhere he turned, people were recognizing him and pointing at him and screaming, "There he is, there he is."
He turns onto Hubbard Street, still running. A woman is getting into her car, and Ramirez tries to steal it. But the woman's husband sees what is happening.
So he grabbed the pipe, he ran over, and he cracked Richard in the head with the pipe.
Ramirez tries running once more, but now a crowd is chasing him. And then it is over.
Somebody got up behind him, they hit him with a pipe, and he went down, and they started pulverizing him.
Moments later, the police arrive. An officer takes Richard Ramirez into custody.
And he saved Richard's life because they were going to do him. They were going to toast him, man.
Obviously, the elation was there that the son of a bitch he's in custody finally. Okay, we finally got him off the street.
I was relieved because I knew citizens were safe. I knew we had the right guy. And I knew my family would be coming back home. So it's a good day.
It was the start of a legal process that would take years. Ramirez would be charged with 13 murders and 40 other counts of sodomy, rape, and assault. He chose as his lawyers 2 young and inexperienced attorneys, Arturo and Daniel Hernandez.
We're ready to enter a plea of not guilty.
They had never before tried a murder case. The Hernandezes would delay the trial for years with pre-trial motions and repeated requests for postponement. Ramirez took the opportunity to work on his persona, alternately sitting sullenly, flashing satanic symbols, or simply seething at the world. He had finally achieved the fame he dreamed of as a child. But the delays could not last forever. In January of 1989, Richard Ramirez would finally face a jury that would determine if he was indeed the Night Stalker. When Crime Stories continues. January 1989. After years of delay, the man who held Los Angeles in terror for months finally faces a jury. Richard Ramirez is charged with 60 counts of murder, rape, and assault.
When I first sat in the courtroom, I felt just that attitude, just the aura of that negative energy, I guess, that he would send out. And he would sit there, you know, just staring everybody down, and you couldn't help but feel uneasy.
The prosecution is led by Philip Halpin. Charge by charge, and week after week, Halpin details the gruesome evidence of rape and torture, shooting and stabbing.
Everything he said was right on the mark. He had his case down pat. He didn't make any mistakes. He didn't falter.
I'll never forget the photographs that I saw. They were very graphic, very violent. Things that you just hear about or you see maybe in a movie.
While prosecutor Halpin continues to methodically present his case, Arturo and Daniel Hernandez do little in their cross-examination to knock it down.
They had their hearts in it, but they did not know enough about legal procedure to really put on a good defense. And I think they may have also been hampered by their client, who was not particularly interested in putting on a good defense and did not assist them greatly. He seemed detached from the whole thing. Occasionally he would have an outburst, and when he had an outburst it was big headlines. He did have a way with words.
Because
the defense team shows signs of strain. Arturo complains of health problems and asks for a recess. Some days, Daniel doesn't come to court at all. Judge Michael Tynan orders them both back into court.
I think that the challenge to Judge Tynan was to keep things going on a straight course.
The trial continues through the spring. Jurors forced to hear horror after horror, but trying to understand.
The whole trial I kept looking at Rich as a person because I wanted to stay neutral. I didn't want to have in my mind, oh, this guy's a monster, he did this, he did that, when I didn't have all the facts.
You had horrible things, eye gougings and terrible stabbings and people being terrified in their homes. And yet, there were these young women who came to court and were Richard Ramirez groupies. They thought he was cute. They thought that he was handsome. They were, I suppose, mesmerized by the whole mystique.
testimony is going to show once...
In May, the defense begins to present its case. The Hernandezes, realizing they need help, enlist Ray Clark, a more experienced defense attorney.
Who do you defend if you don't defend him? I mean, if you don't defend Richard Ramirez, who? It's the worst among us who needs the best defense.
Clark re-energizes the defense team. He tries to raise doubts about the prosecution case and builds his own.
Our defense strategy had to be alibi. That's the only way that you could win. You couldn't say, I was in this lady's apartment, but I didn't shoot her husband, or I didn't blah, blah, blah. You have to say, I wasn't there. Some other dude did it.
But the strategy doesn't hold up.
It seemed like we had some alibis which didn't pan out very well. His father, I believe, was one, an alibi, and I think they blew us out of the water on that. But no, we didn't have great alibi witnesses.
Finally, on July 26th, the case goes to the jury. Case by gruesome case. Point by bloody point. They deliberate. And then, in mid-August, there is shocking news.
It's something that no lawyer could ever envision, no judge could ever envision. It was like out of outer space.
One of the jurors has been murdered in her home in a scene reminiscent of a Night Stalker killing. The defense demands a mistrial. The entire proceeding is in jeopardy. But Judge Tynan rules that the trial should continue. It would be another month of agonizing examination of the evidence. But finally, on September 20th, the jury reaches its unanimous decision.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, having found the defendant, Richard Ramirez, guilty of the murder of Jenny Vinco.
It is the same for every charge. Now the trial enters the penalty phase, and it is up to the Hernandezes to try to keep their client off death row.
They really presented very little of what you usually have to try to save a defendant. Psychological profile, background on what made him the way he was. One of the lawyers actually argued that Richard Ramirez might be the devil, and if so, the devil deserves sympathy too.
With little mitigating evidence, the jury has no choice in its recommendation to Judge Tynan.
It is the judgment and sentence of this court that Richard Ramirez shall suffer the death penalty. This penalty is to be inflicted within the walls of the state prison in San Quentin, California.
On November 7th, 1989, Richard Ramirez is sentenced to die in the gas chamber 19 times. But first, he addresses the court.
You don't understand me. You are not expected to. You are not capable of it. I am beyond your experience. I am beyond good and evil. Legions of the night breed. Repeat not the errors of Nightcrawler and show no mercy. I will be avenged. Lucifer dwells within us all.
As Richard Ramirez is led to prison on that November day, he has one final comment for the media.
Big deal. Death always went with the territory. I'll see you in Disneyland.
Instead, Richard Ramirez went to San Quentin prison. His strange story continues, and Ramirez speaks when Crime Stories returns.